order the town council meeting for May 6th, and we always begin by saying the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have a roll call, please? Connie Reed. Here. Paul Kincaid.
Present.
Jacob Puckett.
Here.
Brian Hill.
Here.
Seth Roberts.
Here.
Okay, so first on the agenda, we have the approval of the minutes from the April 1st meeting.
I make a motion to approve the April 1st meeting minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any comment or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so next we have our public comment section, and under establishing Jordan Street in White Bluff, Tennessee as a one-way street, we have Dakota and Amanda Avery. If you'd like to come up and speak, please. And you turned it on, thank you so much. Thank you. Hi. Go ahead.
We just wanted to talk to you guys about making Jordan Street one way. It's kind of narrow, it's really dangerous with the kids, people flying down through there. Two cars come, one has to pull in somebody's yard or somebody's driveway for the other one to get by. And on each side of the road, there's signs that say speed humps, but there's no speed humps on the road. Apparently there used to be, but they're not there anymore. So if we can get those two, that would be great.
It's been years since they've been there, so it's pretty bad. And nobody, the speed limit, I mean, it's constant. When I moved in there, it's probably been 5 years or so, and it's consistently gotten worse to the point now to where we even had to cut down the bush, because when we back up out of our driveway, you can't see anything. People just fly. I mean, a lot of times there's been...
Speaking of flying, just the other day, she was running to the bushes outside the road.
Trying to get
The work truck was coming through and didn't pull over so one could pass when the bushes were on her side. She ate the bushes.
So you are in favor of it?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, that was the only one that we had for the public comment section, so we're going to move into the public hearing section. So we'll close the town council meeting and open up the public hearing. This is a public hearing before the second and final reading of an ordinance to amend the Town of White Bluff zoning ordinance by amending Article 2, definitions, amending Article 3, general provisions, Section 3.100, accessory use regulations, and adding Article 4, supplementary provisions applying to specific districts, Section 4.120, provisions for conditional use, accessory dwelling units. Would anyone like to speak regarding the accessory dwelling units? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the town council meeting. Under communication from the mayor, I just wanted to point out to everyone that next month's meeting, which is the June meeting, that is when we will have the first reading of the budget. So that will be presented in June as opposed to this meeting tonight. Okay, we are going to move on to budget and finance. And all of you should have in your packet the statement or the, well, I guess it is the summary that we have been receiving in that format. And you should also have the new improved format that has additional detail.
So all in all, on the summary financial statement for revenues, we want to be at 75% or more. And bottom line is we are 96, so that's good. On the expenditures, we want to be 75 or below. And for the total expenditures, we're at 67.56. so that's good too. Our interest for the local government investment pool, which when if you guys do decide to go to this one, it'll be on the back of this as well. So it was at 4.29% to have returning rate. We earned $7,081.84, which brought us up to the $1,950,742.27 that we have in local government investment pool. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'm trying. If you look at this statement, this is the one that breaks down every department. It's got all of the revenue, but more importantly, it breaks down the expenditures. Like in the general government, you can see how much, health insurance is, how much the salaries are, and that. Now, I know that Councilman Kincaid asked me to put a highlight or something on the controllables and non-controllables, and it's almost down to what we can control, or the number of employees and how much we pay them. So everything else is, it varies. On the very back page, you'll see that we do have the drug fund in here, and you'll continue to see that go up because for now we've got it here and we're doing the monthly report and how much we need to be putting in there for drug fines. And we're also taking the tow lot, impound fees, and you'll be able to see them reflected in here too. It's split up into miscellaneous and the drug fine fees because we had to go back somewhat further than this fiscal year. So we took out of the drug fines and fees for this fiscal year from the court, and then previous amounts we took from the general fund, so that's what's reflected in the miscellaneous, the $6,000. Do you have any questions?
Nothing's changed since we reviewed it on the work session.
No.
The police cars that were sold on the GovDeals website, is that reflected in these numbers?
So, how much did we, for the police cars?
We sold the 3 cars, they ended up bringing about 18,000, I believe, and that was supposed to then put towards the 20-some-odd thousand that the council approved to give me to buy the last new one that we were short.
So that would be in the general fund for the other police cars, okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am, I believe
okay.
so.
So it wouldn't specifically show up under the police department or the drug fund?
No.
It just goes into the general fund?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions about the financial statement?
Our general fund, I did not pull it up for you today. You call me tomorrow. So you've got the checking account and you've got the general fund balance, but I can always tell you what we've got in the checking account.
Okay, so we will move on to item number 3, which is consider on first reading an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 Town of White Bluff budget, which is our current budget. And Misty, you want to remind us of what's being modified in this one?
Absolutely. So I added a line for the loan proceeds that came in on the cars and on the fire truck. So you'll see that right here in the general fund loan proceeds, ending budget revenue at $815,500. We had a grant come in for the fire department, so that's going to be ending budget revenue in the grant, the $351,000. That's the $31,000 was added to that for the fire department grant. The library received $5,000 donation that she really wanted to spend this fiscal year. So we needed to amend that so that she could spend that, so it could be appropriated. On the next page, you'll see the police department. Beginning budget expenditures was $840,996. When you add in the cars, it becomes $1,200,996. The fire department started out at $401,549. It ended with $888,049. The library started at $33,000. Added that $5,000 in so she could spend it, so it brings it to $38,000. The street aid fund, we had to make a payment out of the street aid fund for the street lighting because we had not approved our budget last year by the time that payment came around. So we needed to amend that for this. So the expenditures went from $218,890 to $223,848.
Okay, so, thank you for summarizing that. Do I hear a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance amending the 2024-2025 fiscal year budget?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? Okay. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, item number 4, under codes and permits, consider on second and final reading an ordinance to amend the Town of White Bluff zoning ordinance by amending Article 2, definitions, amending Article 3, general provisions, Section 3.100, accessory use regulations, and adding Article 4, supplementary provisions applying to specific districts. Section 4.120, provisions for conditional use, accessory dwelling units. And I think we have an additional item in the packet that Mr. Mills is going to go over for us.
Thank you, Mayor. As you all will recall, at the work session, I think the discussion centered around that subsection F on ownership. And Councilman Puckett asked if we had explored all the language. So I thought about what y'all had discussed. And so I created new language just for your consideration, kind of as a hybrid. And so as you read it, it has a lot of the same provisions that the PC and y'all had talked about. The accessory dwelling unit must be owned by the same person as the main dwelling. The accessory dwelling unit may not be sold separately from the principal structure. Those were two big principles I think everyone has agreed upon. The application for an accessory dwelling unit shall only be approved if the applicant or owner resides on the property or the applicant or owner intends to reside on the property as determined by the Board of Zoning Appeals. That was that new provision that was added so that it would give the BZA some discretion on when you apply. The last sentence is really what's new. Further, the application for an accessory dwelling unit shall only be approved if the intended occupant of the accessory dwelling unit is an immediate family member of the owner, being a parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, child, grandchild, or sibling of the property owner, or such other combination or relationship deemed sufficiently close so as to be considered an immediate family member. So you're giving a little bit more discretion there. The biggest difference here is this is now all at the application phase. So I need a place for my grandmother. I'm going to go get an ADU if I have enough space. I get it, she's living in it, she passes away, but I'm stuck, 'cause I don't have any other family here, right? I think that was a concern espoused. There's no restrictions at that point. It's just at the time of application. I think that provides some protections. Again, the biggest concern from staff is if you have a 40-lot subdivision, R1, if you don't have some type of restriction, someone can come in and just basically make it R2 without seeking the rezoning from you, where they have a larger unit and then a smaller unit. I'm not saying that would happen, it's just it's possible, so there's a concern there. And this at least states a purpose that was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission, and I think has been considered by this body of, it needs to be in that world of someone close to you when you get it. What happens after that, we're not going to be coming back onto the property and policing that and enforcing that. That's been taken out. So I've submitted this to you for your consideration as sort of a hybrid from the discussion on Thursday night.
Question. Does your example was a developer building an R2 when it was only approved as an R1? Would not the first section of this paragraph prevent that, since he would not be the owner occupant?
He'd be the owner when he built it.
He would be the occupant.
He could say he's going to be the occupant.
The 40 houses?
I know, we do one at a time. I'm just saying, you could start to, a lot of developers sell individual lots to builders, and each one of those builders could go down that road. I'm not saying there's not hurdles, it's just the way this is drafted, especially that last part, is limiting it to immediate family member, as you are defining them here from previously, but also giving the BZA some latitude to say, hey, it's a stepchild. Okay, we're okay. You know, it's,
So based on that, he can do it one at a time, sell it to each individual builder, and each individual builder can say, yes, I'm going to be the occupant, and I'm making this for my Grandma Boosie. And then I'm going to build this one for Grandma Boosie. and I'm gonna build
they
this
have
one
to
for Grandma Boosie.
present that at the BZA.
So it doesn't really stop them then.
It makes them do it one at a time.
Well, wouldn't this first paragraph make them do it one at a time as well?
It can.
Don't you think the BZA would catch on after the first or second?
I believe that the first paragraph would allow the BZA to catch on as well.
Well, the accessory dwelling unit has to be on the same parcel, obviously, as the main, right? You're never going to be able to split it off.
Correct. Because the first couple of sentences is specifically addressing occupancy. Here, the owner is intending to occupy. So that...
Well, not the owner is intending to occupy. The accessory dwelling unit must be owned by the same person as the main dwelling. And the accessory dwelling unit may not be sold separately from the principal structure. It doesn't say anything about occupancy. Just that you're the owner of that land when you apply.
Because before we had language in Connie's objection with the intent to occupy on the previous rendition.
Well, no, that's the second sentence. The application shall only be approved if the applicant or owner resides on the property or the applicant or owner intends to reside on the property as determined by BZA. And that doesn't mean they're going to reside in the ADU, that just means they're residing on the property. That was the first change from last go-around to prevent off-site owners from adding an ADU. It has to be on-site.
So I liked that element because that would inhibit the developer in that sense.
So yeah, those last two sentences are where y'all would be giving the BZA some fairly broad discretion in determining the nature of that application. And they would have to show that they are the owner, they have to show something about their intent to occupy. And that last sentence, what's been added, is who is the ADU for? They have to present something on that. It could be as simple as an affidavit. It's not some big lengthy thing which they're gonna have to come and present.
So like I said, your third sentence, the application of accessory dwelling unit shall only be approved if the applicant or owner resides on the property, or the applicant or owner intends to reside on the property. That sentence, in my opinion, would suffice to inhibit the developer from going one-off, so it makes the last sentence unnecessary.
I can see that interpretation.
Because I do appreciate, and personally particularly like the third sentence. I think that's appropriate, that Ms. Connie had brought up.
Is the intent of the last sentence to also open the door for people who are perhaps the best friend that you might consider equal to being a sibling?
I think you have to make your case to the BZA why. And if you've met them last week, I don't imagine that would persuade the BZA, but if you grew up together, maybe. Again, you're giving them some pretty wide latitude. And Councilman Kincaid, I don't disagree with your interpretation for the third sentence being a pretty hard wall. But the fourth sentence is a little bit more belt and suspenders, especially on the initial use. And really, what that would be designed to me to slow down anyway is ADUs popping up just for rental purposes to the general public. But again, this is a policy consideration by this body of, do you want that?
What rights does a property owner have and not have for his own property is the question, yes.
Well, under current zoning, you get one dwelling unit per parcel.
Right.
This is going beyond that. This is allowing more, and you're putting guardrails on what that more is.
So does this paragraph take the place of, is it item F in, okay, so what we looked at the previous meeting, this substitutes, or is substituted for item F?
It's a Frankenstein of what you saw before, moved around with an extra.
So,
sentence in there.
if I understand correctly, then I could get approved to build one of these for my daughter, and then when she moves off, at that point, I can rent the car if I so desire.
You can rent to anybody. It's just the application phase is where we're focused here, as opposed to the continuing enforcement that's been taken off in this version.
And currently, this is acceptable in an R1, R2, just R1?
R1 and R2.
Of course, they have to have the setbacks to be able to build it to begin with.
Sure. You have to have a certain measurement to build it anyway, but
You have to have a big enough
it's
lot.
possible in R2,
Correct.
easier in R1.
Certainly.
But it would at least make you, it would make you come before the BZA and defend your relationship with whoever you're wanting to occupy. Yes, the question is that appropriate or not?
Do you want that limitation? That's exactly what this body's considering.
So what's being presented to us today is everything previous, strike this F, add this F.
Correct.
I'd like to make a motion to strike the last sentence in paragraph F and approve.
So you want to approve the ordinance as a whole with that modification? Is that
With the
right?
last sentence strike, yes.
I'll second.
It's nobody else's business who moves in.
And it's Glover, Scott Glover.
That's the way we had it previous, the way we want it.
Okay, so I have a motion to strike the last sentence beginning with further, and second by Mr. Kincaid. Is there any other discussion on the overall ordinance?
Now that Councilman Glover's made that point, or made that motion, I think that, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of your concerns in sort of, keeping us on our toes during this discussion is you're looking out for, I would think, the community. You're trying to protect the community from this sort of growth, or maybe not growth is not the right word, but this sort of unsightly sort of popping up of these ADUs, and I can appreciate that. And my consideration, and maybe this is totally off base here, but I thought about this kind of all weekend, because I was like, we're going to talk about this on Tuesday, and I feel like I need to have something to contribute other than my comments about have you exhausted all your language. Because this was beautiful. I like the way you picked. That's amazing what you can do with words. But would it be appropriate to require, to the mayor's, if we're going to strike this, because I think this was a beautiful way to sort of walk the middle ground, and I don't think everything should be a compromise on principle. I think there can be correct and incorrect, or, you know, you don't have to compromise. But would it be fair to require some sort of privacy fencing around it? Would that assuage you slightly, or is that just a little too much?
I mean,
Because I get where you're coming from.
I'm not the only person, though, who has
No,
objected to this, but
I understand.
I will.
You're right here, so I'm just
I don't know about the fencing. I do know that there is a concern that at times there are landlords who do not maintain their property, that they are renting to others. It becomes a nuisance. It actually goes as far as having to go through litigation at times. Other people in the community have also expressed their displeasure about sober living facilities in the community. And I will say that once the property is sold and you now have an accessory dwelling unit on it, based on my understanding, if you have a house that has 2 bathrooms in it, the current recommendations for sober living facilities is that you can have up to 6 people sharing 1 bathroom. So if you had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, you could technically get 12 people in there if they would fit. And then if you have an accessory dwelling unit and it's got another bathroom, you could perhaps have another 6 people living in that facility if space allows. So now you've got a total of potentially 18 people living on a property next door to you that was not zoned originally to be a sober living facility, that was not designed to house 18 people. But I don't know what recourse the city would have at that point. Because the way this is written right now, yes, you could say it was intended for a family member at the time the permit was requested and it was initially built, but let's say grandma dies, you decide to sell the property, at that point, all bets are off, and the town's limited what we can enforce.
So, first of all, we shouldn't let the minority rule the majority, and we can always watch this and amend it if it gets out of hand. And third, we can't do anything after it goes through the application process. So after that's all said and done, and somebody, a family member lives there for a month and leaves, it's all said and done, you can't do anything about it. I mean, we could, but as we're talking there, we're not going to send people out to enforce this, so I feel that why put it in there if it's not going to be enforceable?
And I'm assuming, we talked about just striking this altogether, banning them.
Because currently they are banned.
Currently they
They're
are
not
banned.
allowed it out at all.
But my concern is, and I think would continue to be, that they're going to do them anyway. So at least by having this, whether we take the last line out or not, we would have the codes inspection on the structure. Whereas now they hide them. They'll disguise it as a garage, but there's people living there. And I don't disagree with you about the treatment facilities. I know the house next to my business partner is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, and they've got 22 people living there. And so, I think that's, but, and you're right, there's nothing we can do once, hope that occurs.
Hopefully our state representative can help change that law.
Yeah.
I do like this will force, these to go through codes where if they do have people living in them, at least they'll be a safety measure, whereas now they're just, I've seen a lot. Because most of the time, if you build one don't want anybody to know, then extension cords are your main power source because they're easy to hide, you can run it out there. Like I say, disguise it as a garage, remodel the inside, nobody knows. And that, which is very dangerous for the people living there, even if they don't realize it.
Well, to play devil's advocate, if you were gonna do a sober living home and this was your objective, was to get as much bedrooms and bathrooms on the property as you wanted, you could just expand onto the building. You don't have to necessarily make it an ADU.
And that's one thing I've teetered on this about, because, with being in construction, it's very cost effective to attach it by a roof line and circumvent all of it. You still have to get a permit, obviously, but you would be approved to do whatever space on your property would allow.
So even if we included this line, it's not gonna stop the sober living problem, although I do agree that that's a problem, and I very much hope that our state representative can change some things on the state level that would empower us locally.
Is there I guess addressing Derek here, is there a limit to the occupancy of a house?
As far as the family, or
As far as how many bedrooms and bathrooms you have versus, like this example, and you had 22 people live in a 3-bedroom house, 2 bed. Is there a code against that, or?
As far as the sober living side of it, I've had a decent bit of experience from my previous employer with it, but they're really tough to discriminate against. So I think,
Well, I'm not talking about discrimination.
yeah, but I'm
talking
just
about
saying,
living.
legally, to answer your question, I think that they can have 6 people as a family and 2 parents. So roughly 8 people. Now, I've been in one more recently that they had shoved 15 people down in the basement with no egress windows.
Right.
So,
8 people's not 22.
no, exactly. But there is written case that here is the zoning ordinance would have to catch you on that. And you really don't have a whole lot of teeth currently with that particular. It's a real slippery slope currently.
Yeah, that's a whole different,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just kind of stop our
Yeah.
discussion on that. That's a whole different area of law that I don't want you conflating with this.
Yeah.
There are federal regulations and laws in place. There's state laws on this. I could give you an hour lecture on how we got to where we are, but it's 8 per dwelling unit by state law. But then you have the Fair Housing Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's a lot of layers, and Dixon County's got a lot of sober living. And it is something that's being talked about at the General Assembly, but I don't want us to say anything publicly right now, just from the hip. If we want to get into a debate on sober living, we could get you something, but I wouldn't put it in with this discussion.
Thank you, counsel, for your protection.
So just going back to what Brian was saying, currently, if someone does take a garage or some kind of storage building and they are doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, like running extension cords to it, renting it out to people, the town has the ability to condemn that or somehow cite them.
Certainly cite, possible injunction, I mean, it's going to be case by case. Mr. Long and I would have to figure that out. But if it's not permitted, it can be shut down. It has to be found. So you can't go after what you don't know.
Rely on complaint system more than times than not on that.
So we already have that in place. Okay, so there's no need to add to it.
Not for that. Again, it's not allowed, as the mayor said. This is opening a door for an additional type, and as Councilman Kincaid pointed out, you could just add on to your house. Or you could do this. When you start to have another dwelling unit, a lot comes into play, especially with zoning and codes, et cetera. So this is allowing an accessory dwelling unit, a full, smaller house. And what you're obviously talking about is, are we comfortable with certain parameters or not on that? And you're not locked in, obviously. If someone gets a permit, they're under whatever the law is at the time. But if you start seeing something you don't like, you can amend this. So I think Councilman Glover's absolutely right, that if you see something that you don't like, you can change that. but you are opening a door to however you vote tonight to that thing. You can get 12 applications tomorrow morning, you don't know, so I doubt that, but
I also noticed there's nothing that mentions insurance in here.
we don't know.
Because if you have another dwelling unit, I'm sure your insurance company would want to know about that.
I'm sure they would, but the law does not require you to have homeowner's insurance. Mortgage companies do.
Right.
It's wise to have it.
Right.
But there are plenty of houses in Dixon County that don't have
Sure,
homeowner's insurance.
If it's paid for.
Yeah, some people just choose to take that risk.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it appropriate to consider an occupancy limit in this case right here?
No. I would not.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance as it is written, striking the last sentence beginning with the word further. Is there any other discussion before we take a vote?
I understand that we as the council have the final say, but I'm also speaking with my planning commission hat, and this is basically what we recommended, and because of that, I'm gonna say right now, when it comes time to vote, I will vote no to strike that.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, so the motion passes. And we will move on to item number 5, which is the building report. And Derek or Jeff, do you guys want to summarize the building report?
Yeah, so for the month of April 2025, the county issued two building reports, 2 building permits, I'm sorry.
Make sure you write H&H Properties really hard, gotta watch out for this.
Yeah, watch it.
And remind me again, does this include all permits that are issued regardless of whether it's for a structure, event, anything like that, or?
So typically, these are the new builds, and then usually Misty will give me a breakdown of anything else. I'm assuming since we didn't have that, then we don't have any additional.
Correct. But if we did have anything commercial, it would also be reflected on this report? Yes, okay.
So there's no current permits for the new Maple?
It's my understanding they have not tried to pull permits yet. They're talking about it, but they haven't pulled any yet.
On Marshall Road?
Correct.
Another meeting.
Okay, if there's no questions about the building permit report, we will move to public safety to the police department's report.
For the month of April, we had 439 calls for service. Of that, it consisted of 176 traffic stops, 141 citations were issued, 50 warnings, 50 arrests, 2 DUIs, and 7 narcotic charges this month.
Over 60 more calls.
I'm sorry?
So that's over 60 more calls. Warm weather good?
Yes, sir.
How's our 2 newer officers doing?
Doing well. The greater portion of the narcotic charges were the one that we brought from Ashland City, which
Rock on.
that is his forte. So,
Any questions for Chief Wiltshire? How are the items that were surplus, how is that going?
I have not been able to get anything else put online yet. I did put the vehicle that was taken from Hornell Road. That was, I finally got it on there and got it sold. I have not, the fire department was waiting to try to finish cleaning out some of their equipment before I got their equipment as well. So, I will get on that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next we have the fire department report.
New registrars this past month.
This looks like a new low, or at least even with the low.
It's low from last year. Don't really have any explanation for it. We'll make up for probably this and that all. Sorry for black and white, I just forgot to hit color on the machine.
Didn't just be spoiled on it.
The structure fire that occurred, so that was outside city limits?
Yes, ma'am. That was actually, we assisted Cloud. We assisted Cloud.
Okay, any questions on the fire department report?
How was our out of the city subscription service doing?
I don't know how many, right off the head, I can tell you how many we've had, off the top of my head.
Looks like our revenue is down on that.
It's down from the year before.
We'll be sending out the renewal stuff this month, posted next month.
Do we ever send out any marketing stuff for that?
We just send out renewals.
No marketing?
Yeah. It's one of the things, some people just
The house fire that occurred, I understand that they had the out of the city limits coverage.
often they weren't on coverage whenever this happened. They hadn't been a member for a year and a half. They had been a member, then they weren't a member, then they were a member, then they weren't a member, and they hadn't been a member for the past year and a half prior.
Now, I'm just going on what they had told me.
Yeah, it had been a year and a half since they've been a subscriber. I heard the same thing. You?
Thank you. Okay, so next up, we have the court report.
Yes, ma'am. The court clerk reports court cases for the month of April. Total cases 93, comprised of 15 criminal and 78 traffic.
Any questions about the court report? Okay, if there's no questions about that, we will discuss the streets and sidewalks, consider an ordinance establishing Jordan Street and White Bluff as a one-way street.
I'm going to make a motion to establish that ordinance.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a first and a second. Any discussion?
What's the correction?
North from Highway 70 toward Taylortown Road.
And, the people we talked earlier said there was a sign that says bump, do no bump.
So historically, or in the past, the town has had speed bumps on certain roads. At one time, a legal opinion was that it could land the city in liability issues. And so we don't continue with speed bumps anymore. We'll take those signs down.
Oh, okay, I thought it was just left up there for red.
Well, and if it works, we'll leave it up there.
Thank you for opening that conversation, Scott. I actually had been curious about that because I heard that legal opinion too, because I asked our proceeding mayor about that, and she told me that exact same thing. But there's got to be a difference. I mean, there's a difference between speed bumps, speed humps, speed tables. I mean, there's so many different options, speed breaks. Surely there's some form of method that would be more secure in keeping us out of legal trouble. My hypothesis and thought on it was that, because obviously if we tried to install them in the city, that would have a financial burden. But while maybe we were redoing streets or part of the development process, maybe look at it as a part of that process as opposed to old streets, if we were to find a method that would clear legal, that we were happy with as a town, whether that be, like I said, tables, pumps, I don't know. Are you, either one of you, I really kind of guess the question
So
directed to you
just
guys.
to clarify, it's not the thing itself, it's the process of getting there. I can share with you what we've done elsewhere, but it's you need to go through, it's basically speed reduction policy. And you start with off-street, so that would be a speed limit sign, right, the simplest, to ramping it up, to then moving to on-street, to actually affecting the street, right? So you got signage on the street that says slow down, it's not a bump or anything. And there are a number of speed humps, tables, pillows, there's a ton out there, some get very expensive very quickly. And then getting community buy-in is really one of the biggest things with this. It's not a legal requirement, it's just if half the road doesn't want it and half do, how do you address that, right? So if that is something the council wants to explore, we can bring it up at a work session, but there's a process. We can do it, but the way the town was doing it before was my issue, the process not being resolved per se, just to clarify.
At least, let's at least explore the conversation. Does anybody else agree with me or no, or not?
I hate them, I'm gonna be honest.
You hate 'em?
Absolutely hate
Fair
them.
enough.
But that's just me.
I don't know. Me too.
You don't hate them?
Depends on the angle, if you can get a good.
There are better ones. I'll give you all that. There are better methods, absolutely.
Radar, put the sign that says how fast you I'm trying to be hit, records in it.
Personally, I'm not necessarily suggesting we put them all over town. I just would enjoy a policy in place that, let's say, a specific community would buy in and say, well, we want something. We would say, okay, we have this policy, this is what we can do, and we have some sort of.
I'm not opposed to discussion.
So I'm not necessarily saying, let's go put them everywhere. I'm just saying, let's actually have a path to direct. If a whole street shows up and says, we want something, we have something to tell them to go to. That's all.
I did exactly that about 18 months ago. I can just bring you those bullet points and y'all can talk. Maybe the next work session, I'm going to get with the mayor and Jeff on, do you want to overload any agenda? You've got the budget.
Sure.
So maybe after budget season. But it's designed for that. It's sort of a last point. It's designed to be residential roads only. And you have to reach a certain level of people signing up for it. And then a review is done of what's going to be the best one. Should we put up more signage or what, right? So it's a whole policy and process, and you have to get the buy-in. But I can do that in a couple months.
Community buy-in on that is great.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That goes into effect immediately, is that correct? I think they can-
No, second reading.
Oh, I'm
will be-
sorry. Okay, so there is.
Second and final next month. Public hearing?
Not on this, no.
Oh, no, no second reading?
No, there's a
Yeah,
second
second
reading.
reading, no public hearing.
Okay, so the next item is to consider the irrevocable dedication to accept Timbercrest Trail in the Timbercrest subdivision. So we discussed on Thursday that they have a maintenance bond, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept Timbercrest Trail?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Now that we've had the motion take place, I know that this is to accept this, obviously, this street. Do we consider the streets that may be directly in connection with the street that may have been damaged from the construction process before we accept this, to make sure that they've fixed the streets they may have messed up that were adjoining? Do we look at that?
We do.
We changed the law 4 or 5 years ago for that very, the turning in off the road, I'm not bonding.
Yeah, that's what I'm specifically asking.
Also, it's State Highway 47, so it's a little bit different, but yes, we have that regulation.
Greedily, I'm specifically asking that because I'm thinking of carried away right now. That's where
They will have to improve that road.
Okay, that's where my brain is going, is if we consider that to be a separate road. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next is consider a street light at 4521 Highway 47 East. We just need a motion.
Just a motion, yep.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to add that street light?
I'll move to add the street light.
Do I have a second?
Second that. Wasn't there a mention of a second light that was possibly going to take place?
I mentioned that the police were going to look at that. I didn't hear anything back, so we'll go with this one. And if there is something down the road, I'll bring it back to you.
Okay, so all in favor of adding the street light at 4521, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Parks and Recreation, we are considering a resolution delegating the Friends of White Bluff the authority to name areas of the Bend White Bluff Nature Park and/or interior and exterior rooms of the Nature Center.
I'll move to accept this resolution.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second. I just had a question.
Okay.
What's the process of applying for one of those? Like if you wanted to put your name on something, is there a process?
So yes. If this passes, then the Friends will go through and make, in this case, it's a little broader than what we had with the Civic Center, so there'll be different levels of items or rooms or whatever. And then, yes, we will advertise that. I don't know exactly, we'll probably have an event around that, so it would be, of course, open to the public, that kind of thing, so.
I was just curious.
Potentially having nominations?
Pardon?
Potentially having nominations and such? Suggestions?
Think more like silent auction.
Yeah.
Ryan Pappy Hills.
You really want a room named after, you want a room named after X, you need to outfit anyone else who
Yeah.
wants to name a room after Y.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve this resolution? Oh, I'm sorry, we do. Okay. Any other questions, discussion? No? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you all.
And then under old business, consider the Commerce Advisory Committee members. At this time, we have about 1 to 2 local business owners who are interested So if there's anyone else that you would like to nominate, or if you yourself would like to participate as the council member, he's basically going to be a liaison between the Commerce Advisory Committee and the town council. We will definitely take that into consideration.
May I submit Ms. Cindy Dawson from Ace Hardware as my
Okay.
and I've spoken with her, she said she will.
All right.
And I would like to throw under the bus Brian Hill for the council representative. That's my nomination. See if we're doing it that way, I don't know.
All right.
It's ad hoc, so y'all get to decide how to.
Okay, under new business, item number 10, which is considered the bids for mowing the town-owned properties. You should have that in your packet, and this is what we did take a look at Thursday evening. There we go. So, Jeff, do you want to review any of this again?
It's the same thing we talked about Thursday night. There were 4 bids submitted. You see the 4 bids. Everyone did a good job turning in the prerequisite material. And then you see their bid amount, their bid proposed amount there on the right.
Question, does this include anything like picking up garbage while they're mowing?
Yes. So, under scope of work, we outlined when the mowing season was, we gave them a specific list of all of the town-owned property. It also says after mowing, removal of grass clippings from sidewalks, roadways, and parking areas, removal of litter and debris, edging along sidewalks, driveways, and curbs, annual mulching and trimming of trees, shrubs, etc. at White Bluff Town Hall and the Fifth White Bluff Civic Center, and compliance with town regulations and safety standards. That's the project scope.
Jeff, you said that currently the Hayes Lawn Care has the contract
Yes, sir, they've done it for the last several years.
and never had an issue with it.
No, sir, they do a good job.
Can I make a motion that we go with Hayes Lawn Care?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any questions?
I think we'd like to take it.
I'm sure you'd like to get paid that, because it's in one.
And just,
I would certainly quit whatever I do to do that.
and Jeff, I'm sorry, did you say that they have, this is a 1-year contract, and they have the option to renew for 1 year? Is that
So the amount is an annual amount.
Mhm.
The term is for a 2-year term,
Okay,
and then there's an option to renew for 2 more years if both parties agree.
okay. So potentially, this could be the price that's set for 4 years, up to 4 years?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then item number 11, consider a resolution of the town of White Bluff acknowledging approval of the cybersecurity reimbursement grant in the amount of $54,271.92.
Good job, Missy.
Good job.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, if there's nothing else, do I have a motion to
I have a
adjourn?
question.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
So, this accessory dwelling unit that we just passed, it's already been here once, and then went to the planning and zoning, they changed it, and it's back here, we changed it back, and now it's going back there again.
No.
It's small. None?
Oh, sorry.
recall my question.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.